In March 2026, the global economy hit a wall. Oil broke past $100 a barrel, and natural gas prices surged 63%. And in agricultural markets, the chemical fertilizers required to grow the world's food supply suddenly faced severe shortages. This synchronized global volatility was the immediate fallout of a single military operation launched thousands of miles away on February 28th. In a coordinated offensive known as Operation Roaring Lion and Operation Epic Fury, United States and Israeli forces launched hundreds of precise airstrikes across Iran. They targeted ballistic missile sites, naval bases, and highly secure nuclear enrichment facilities. The objective was strategic decapitation. Within hours, the strikes eliminated key members of the Iranian regime's senior leadership, including Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. By conventional metrics, the operation was devastating. But taking out a government's high command and crippling its military hardware didn't pacify the region. Instead, it pushed the surviving security forces to trigger a global economic hostage situation. With its leadership gone and its proxy networks in Lebanon, Gaza, and Yemen severely degraded, Iran's military faced an impossible equation. They lacked the firepower to match two allied superpowers in an open fight, but Iran is enormous, larger than France, Germany, and Spain combined, and its southern border lines up perfectly with the world's most vital economic artery. When a military cannot win head-to-head, it relies on asymmetric warfare. You ignore the enemy's heavily armored destroyers and instead target the soft, undefended underbelly of their economy, civilian supply chains. The retaliation strategy shifted away from launching missiles at Washington or Tel Aviv. The new goal was to cut off the flow of global trade and force the international community to absorb the pain. This map shows the Strait of Hormuz, the waterway connecting the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. At its absolute widest point, it is incredibly narrow. The navigable shipping lanes squeezing through this choke point are just 39 kilometers across. Despite its size, roughly 20 million barrels of petroleum pass through this gap every single day. That accounts for 27% of the entire world's maritime oil trade. It's also the primary exit route for 22% of global liquefied natural gas, or LNG, a crucial fuel used to heat homes and power factories across Europe and Asia. The Persian Gulf is also the primary source for non-energy commodities like helium and urea. Qatar accounts for 30% of the world's helium production, which is required to manufacture semiconductors. The region also exports massive quantities of urea, a nitrogen-based compound used to make the chemical fertilizers that sustain global crop yields. This 39-kilometer gap creates a massive structural bottleneck for global energy markets, high-tech manufacturing, and food production. To seal this bottleneck, Iranian forces did not sail warships out to intercept international fleets. They utilized thousands of naval mines, some moored below the surface, others resting on the seafloor, alongside swarms of fast-attack speedboats and loitering suicide drones. Look at this chart of maritime insurance premiums. When a few of those hidden weapons strike commercial vessels, insurance providers use their 72-hour cancellation clauses to recalculate the danger. Within days, war risk insurance premiums for ships entering the Gulf spiked by up to 500%. Faced with exorbitant insurance costs and the direct threat to their crews, ocean carriers simply stopped sending their tankers into the strait. A mathematically inferior military managed to paralyze global trade routes without fighting the U.S. Navy. They simply made the math too expensive and too dangerous for civilian shipping companies to operate. The United States government scrambled to unfreeze the supply chain. In early March, President Trump directed the DFC, the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, to provide $20 billion in state-backed political risk insurance to cover commercial ships and their cargo. But an insurance policy cannot stop an anti-ship missile. To guarantee safety, the administration floated the prospect of U.S. Navy warships physically escorting civilian tankers through the kill zone. This scenario played out in the late 1980s during the tanker war. The U.S. reflagged Kuwaiti oil vessels and escorted them through the Gulf. a move that eventually escalated into Operation Praying Mantis, the largest U.S. Navy surface battle since World War II. To restore the flow of oil and gas, the U.S. has to project naval power directly off the Iranian coast. That risks igniting the exact kind of prolonged regional warfare that the initial decapitation strikes were designed to prevent. As long as the strait remains contested, ocean carriers must abandon the Suez Canal, diverting ships on a long detour around the Cape of Good Hope. This creates fewer deliveries, prolonged energy price spikes, and persistent baseline inflation worldwide. The 2026 war demonstrates a chilling reality for a hyper-connected world. Geographic leverage can be more disruptive than traditional military might. Controlling these 39 kilometers of water allows a crippled nation to dictate the terms of the global economy.